John Henry Zip Northrup. Going back in history, we have quite a lot to live up to in that our ancestor was Solomon Northup, who wrote the book 12 Years a Slave, and to which in 2013 there was an Academy Award movie made of that. So Solomon for himself was one who was very opportunistic in that he scanned the field into which he had been enslaved. He never pointed fingers at individuals, he just was an observer who wanted everyone to understand what slavery was like and how it transcended from one individual to another, from one family to another, and how certain aspects of slavery have become a generational issue even living in today's world. That being said, Alonzo is my great-grandfather. He was the only son of Solomon. Alonzo is the father of John Henry. Alonzo and his wife Victoria had 10 children. And John Henry was, towards the end of that, there were only 3 boys in the family, and John Henry was the youngest. How we got interested in baseball is quite peculiar because nobody in our family prior to that had any interest, evidently. And from my research, I find that John Henry was a very precocious child, if you will, who, in the town in which he lived, which is Westport, New York, had a professional baseball team called Westport Watsons. They were a championship team of the state of New York and a team of all white players. In Westport, their home base, they did have a home field. And John Henry and his family lived only about 2 blocks away from that field. And anytime the team was in town, John Henry would beeline it out the door with his glove, ready to go up the field and see if he could catch balls and do this, that, and the other thing on the field. Well, he did very well, and that he was also observed by a gentleman who became the premier of Westport 4 times and also a New York State Assemblyman, and his name was E.G. Treat. Mr. Treat found that John Henry was quite a good ball player for a little guy, and gave him the job of being a team mascot. In so doing, throughout the course of him being a mascot and one thing and another, the other team members sort of took him under their wing and taught him, the rules of the game and so forth and so on. One of the other things during this time was that by the time that John Henry had become 15, and this is just a side story, he was permitted or asked to babysit for a prisoner. The prisoner had a past history of being quite sleight of hand and easily able to escape. That night that John Henry stayed there as an observer, he fell asleep. So obviously what happens? Our escapee, behind bars, found himself an opportunity. Unfortunately for John Henry, he was only admonished verbally and nothing else occurred. John Henry did this job because he was trying to earn money for his family. After that, by the time John Henry was 17 years old, 18, the Westport Watsons put him on the team and gave him the job of being a pitcher. He was so good at pitching that his expertise became renowned And one of the scouts for the Cuban Giants, which was the first all-black um, professional baseball team, came and saw what John Henry did, and in that July, signed him to play with the Cuban Giants. So from 1902 to 1906, he was a player on that team, pitching and also playing other positions. Um, John Henry was very adept at all positions, and he was also credited with being a fairly good base runner. After 1906, he decided to leave the Giants because he felt that they pitched him too hard and were going to ruin his pitching arm. So upon his leaving there, he decided to go back to the Watsons, and he did play for the Watsons on and off for 10 years. And during the time in between all this, the era, he was playing for other teams too, within Cuba County and within the city of Auburn. Some of the things that John Henry did during his time of play were positions not only of player, but a coach and manager and an organizer. He was very devout in encouraging the other players to model and improve on their skill sets, to bring out the best of them, which some of them didn't even realize that they had. And so mentoring some of these players, they did progress on up the ladder of baseball and continuity within that framework. One of the other things that John Henry did was he liked to organize teams that were mixed versus just all Negro or all white teams, which he did. He participated in all three circles. But he thought that having mixed teams, people would be able to understand, each other and be able to progress in a way that understanding made us all more enriched, which was probably revolutionary at the time when he was a ball player. He never got into politics too much. I think the only time that I read where he actually was involved, and I don't mean physically or, work and all that stuff, but involved as a person was when he played for the Cuban Giants. And being an all-black team and doing what they called barnstorming, which was picking up any game in town that you could with any ball team in that town. Gathering together on a common field and, having various spectators come and watch you. But some of those spectators were abhorrent in a way where they would bring garbage and cakes and God knows whatever else to throw at the ball players. It's kind of funny in a way because the ball players, regardless of what their shape, form, and color were darn good ball players. I mean, some of them, if you read back in history and you read about the Negro Leagues, you'll see these guys going through a heck of a lot of misery, but still performing at the upper class elite. And I think that, something credited, should be credited that hasn't always been known. Another event that was more political, if you will, in New York, in fact, in most New England, when the Pilgrims arrived, there were what were called the Blue Laws. The Blue Laws stipulated that on Sundays, all families were to stay home. You went to church, you did your tithe and so forth and so on. But you were confined to sitting around the table, candlelight or lantern, and reading the Bible and talking about different things, maybe even singing, hymns and so forth. But you were not allowed to go to stores and shop. You weren't allowed to participate in activities that were for the enjoyment of yourself, anyways. And so that strict behavior, if you violated it and it was found out, The worst sentence would be death. Can you imagine sitting after people, having somebody come in from law enforcement, extracting you from your home and saying, well, this is your sentence. Mind you, you didn't have a court trial. It was just the people in the village who dictated what your penance would be. One of the other things that the blue laws stipulated was that there were no games played on Sunday. So in 1913, John Henry played for the Norwoods. And the Norwoods and the All-American team decided they would have a ball game. And this is a Sunday. It was going to be played in the Fleming Ball Field outside of Auburn, New York. And they all met. They all took positions to start to play. There was a group of spectators that came, really filled the stands, if you will, or put blankets on the field to sit and watch the game. And then all of a sudden, Lord and behold, up comes a wagon full of people from the Union Bible School. And a group of sheriffs met. They abruptly said, well, game's over, go home, no more playing is going to happen. Well, some kind of a chaotic event happened. There was one political mayor electee who got up on some kind of a bench and was proclaiming left and right what his thoughts were and so forth and so on. He instigated the bit of a riot. So included into that riot, arrested were members of the ball team and some spectators. Going forward, once this trial became available, some of the players were excused, some of the players only paid a $5 fine, but John Henry and 9 of his players ended up in the Hoosgow. Mind you, in 1907, the first law for baseball to be played on Sundays was introduced in the state legislature. It was ignored. 1907. 1913, this event. In 1913 November, which was 6 months after John Henry was jailed and the rest of the team and so forth, all of a sudden it was decided, well, everything is over, there's no issue, blah, blah, blah. Somehow it was all excused, and it was all politically minded. In 1919, finally, the New York State Legislature did vote for baseball to be played on Sundays. So now you see Sunday baseball, we all gather in front of the television and watch our favorite teams play, or, go out to the field and, sit in the stands and watch our favorite players, do their thing and so forth. But it was that transition in 12 years it took for that one law to be made and for us to really benefit from that. And even John Henry sat in the chair waiting for his moment of release. He did, mark some kind of a chalk mark on that roll call, if you will. Some of the other things that he participated in was organizing different games or different teams. In Leesport, Fort Byron, he was asked by local educators to give them information on how to put together a high school baseball team. And from both of those schools, we now today see, the teams that have evolved over time. In 1942, John Henry was invited to the board meeting and asked again to help in helping organize more events towards baseball and for the towns in themselves to better encourage people to attend and so forth. as it was, John Henry decided that he would rather retire to his farm and spend the rest of his time with his family, 1944, until he passed away. So whether or not he knew that he was ill or anything like that, that we'll never know because it hasn't been described. And I'm done.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.